All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this brief call on Rotary Youth Exchange short term. And my name is Dale Leatherman. I'm the Rotary Youth Exchange Chair and DGE for District 6710. We are recording this so that we can send this out to the clubs and everybody can learn more about short-term exchanges. Rotarians, like all of you, want to make a difference and make a difference in the lives of others. Rotary Youth Exchange is an opportunity to do just that. In fact, for those students, it's an opportunity of a lifetime. They can develop leadership skills, learn new cultures and languages, build lasting friendships from all over the world, and become a global citizen. Not only does Rotary Youth Exchange make a positive impact on the student, it also normally makes a positive impact on the host families. We have one of ours own here in the district that has experienced that, and he has had multiple Rotary Youth Exchange students, and that is our district governor, Tom Reed. So Tom, would you like to share briefly about some of your experiences?
Yes, in fact, I am going to turn, if I can, are y'all watching Dale or are y'all watching me here? Anyway, as you can see, I have a brick wall in my study, and every brick that is signed in there is signed by a youth exchange, whether it be short term. I had a couple of short term, then I had a couple of, or had about 10 that were long term. These were all from 1986 to 2012, and then at that point in time, our district was unable to coordinate any youth exchanges. And so it's been, is that about right, Dale? It's been 2012 since we had any youth exchange in this district?
Yeah, it's been over 15 years.
So anyway, I had quite a few. I have gone back and visited some of them abroad. But I tell everybody the greatest thing about what we did here in our district and in Bardstown, and especially for me, I'm a father of 3 girls, and most of the time during which we were having exchange students, they were finding out that Bardstown was not the center of the universe, and they got such a great understanding of what the world was all about that their education, along with their academic education, made them very good students and very good people.
Great. Well, Tommy, thank you for sharing that. And I know it's been a little while, but hopefully we can have some more stories like that in the near future. Thank you for joining us. I know you've been busy traveling, so we appreciate you joining and speaking to us here as well as to the audience as we send this out. So tonight we plan to move pretty quickly with this video. The presentation is scheduled for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to have some time for questions. Now, tonight, I'm happy to introduce to you my co-presenter, Mr. Ron Jensen, who is joining us from Colorado. Now, Ron is actually the expert in Rotary Youth Exchange for short term. He is the chair for Rotary Youth Exchange OE multi-district. Now, some of you have probably heard that called Ohio Erie multi-district. But District 6710 is part of OE multi-district. Ron, would you like to say hello to everyone?
I'll say hello, and maybe just clarify one thing. While I'm in Colorado, I spend the summers out here, but Colorado is not part of OE. I am actually originally, or spend the winters, and where I was governor, Tom, was in Orlando in Central Florida. So District 6980.
Great, welcome. Welcome, Ron. We appreciate you joining us tonight, and we're going to hear more from him shortly. And I also like to introduce our technical consultant for this evening, who is also our Zoom host, Ms. Brooke Hain. Brooke, would you like to say hello to everyone?
Hi. I will be here. If you need anything, I'll be listening to you, listening for you.
Very good. We thank you for joining us, and I know you're doing this as a favor. So Brooke does very large Zoom broadcasts, so we appreciate that she took the time to be with us today.
Thank you.
So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. So Rotary has been doing youth exchange for 50 years. And as Tommy mentioned, we have not done it in District 6710 for many years, over 15 years. So we're excited to be restarting Youth Exchange. In fact, we were recertified in Youth Exchange in February. And so that means that Rotary International has given us the permission to move forward and offering Youth Exchange experiences. Now, there's been a lot of buzz about us starting Youth Exchange, but there's not a lot of experience because it's been so long since our district has hosted a Youth Exchange. And so let's talk a little bit about the three different types of exchanges. And then we're going to spend most of our time tonight just on the short term. So first of all, there's your traditional exchange that most of you are probably familiar with. That's inbound. That's where your club would sponsor an international student to come over here to the US, enroll in high school for an entire academic year, and then live with 3 different host families during the experience for about 3 months for each host family. So that's inbound. There's also outbound, and that's where your club would sponsor a student to travel globally for the academic year and live with 3 host families overseas or in another country. And these students do not have to be children of Rotary members, but they do need to be in our district. And that's outbound. But tonight we're going to be speaking about short term, which many times you might hear it called the SWAP program. And we'll talk about why it's called a SWAP program shortly. But the short term exchange is probably the easiest exchange to participate in for families and clubs. It's normally held in the summer, June through August, and students between the age of 15 to 18. So how does it work? So a student from the US travels to another country and stays with a host family who has a child about the same age and the same gender. And they would stay around 30 days with that host family. They would learn about the culture, visit the Rotary Club in the area, experience life in the different country, eat the local food, and just have a great time where they're there for 30 days. Now, after the 30 days, the US student would come back with the other exchange student that he or she has been living with. They'll travel back to the United States, and then they stay with the first student's family. So they become the host family for the student that was overseas. Thus, it's called the SWAP program. And it's as I said, it's the easiest and least expensive way to do an exchange. Some students don't want to leave home because of maybe sports or clubs or boyfriend, girlfriend, or just feel a little uncomfortable. This short-term exchange gives them a great way to experience culture overseas without having to go for an academic year. So they're going for about 30 days, and they can have a great time, a great experience in that short time. In fact, many of these same students, after they've finished their short-term exchange, decide they want to go back for a long-term academic exchange the following year. And so that happens a lot. So that is kind of at a high level what the short-term exchange is all about. I'm going to turn it over to Ron, who's going to explain about the countries that the student could possibly go to and other important information that he'll be sharing. Ron?
Thanks, Dale. You did a great job explaining that. I think for particularly getting back into the program, the STEP program works well for many reasons. One, today schools have become a lot more complicated than they probably were 15 years ago relative to having people come in. With this short term, or I'm going to call it the STEP program, the STEP program, there's no school involvement or very little school involvement. You don't have to get permission to have the students there. One of the other issues that comes up with a long-term program often is kids will, I won't say often, but it does happen probably with 10% of the kids, they can get homesick. And usually by the end of the time period, they don't want to leave, but that time period in the in the fall, they can often get a little homesick. With the short-term program, that almost just never happens because it's too short a period. And the other great thing is with the long-term program, you've got to find host families. And with the short-term program, the host family are the parents of the students participating. So that's an automatic thing. So from a district standpoint, it solves a lot of the problems. Now, one of the other great things about the short-term program, you mentioned students going on to the long-term program. They now understand what it's all about. They make great long-term candidates. But also the host families that have been in a short-term say, wow, this was a great learning experience, not only for us, but for any other children that may be in the household to live with somebody from another country. So you have that experience as well. And they may say, hey, I would like to, and we find in a lot of cases, our host families come from having been a short-term or step host family. So those are some of the benefits of that. I'll read through the countries real quick, and I'm going to go through here. I'll do it by region of the world. Europe by far is our single biggest region where we see most of our people attending, and the countries we now trade exchange with are Austria, Belgium, the Czech Republic, Finland, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland. So those are the ones primarily. Now, I will say of those, the big four, and again, I'll do it in alphabetical order: France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. One of the things that you mentioned correctly, but there's a little asterisk to it. If you are going on a short-term exchange to a country south of the equator, and I'll mention those here in a second, primarily that's South America, then it's a split exchange. The students will still go, ours would go over to the country in South America in the summer, our summer months. That's when they're in the middle of their winter months, their school year. So they would be there during their school year and would audit or sit in on much of their school. We try to do it whenever there's holidays and vice versa. When that student comes back, they come back during our winter months. Try to do it primarily the December and the first part of January when our students are out of school, but there would be some auditing as well. Now, it's not like enrolling. Usually schools will allow auditing where they are not as receptive to, at least we found that in some cases, not as receptive to actual enrollment. Things have changed with COVID. Things have changed actually even after 9/11. With security and everything else, there has been some reluctance on some schools for long-term programs. But short-term, we've normally been able to get away with bringing them in. Let me give you those countries in South America, or I'll say Latin America, because we do include Mexico in that, even though they would be a normal exchange. They are Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, Paraguay, Peru, and Uruguay. And we do have a few in Asia as well. We have Japan, the Philippines, and Taiwan. I will say that Taiwan, while they are still doing it, they were begging for people, and there was not with all the things going on with Taiwan and China today, I think there's been somewhat of a reluctance on parents to send students there, but Taiwan loves exchanges and would love to see some. So that's kind of the countries. Any questions on that? Let's talk a little bit about costs then. You know that you've got a district fee, and out of that you pay OE $300. That's handling any of the expenses that we incur. And usually with your administrative or your fees, normally you'll have a little in there to cover some additional expenses, depending again on what the governor has in his or her budget. But you'll also, many times you'll get them a jacket. You've seen probably Tom, I'm sure you're well aware of the jackets that the long-term had that, and we'll usually get a blazer or jacket like that they can put all their pins and buttons on and that sort of thing. We like to see an emergency, they're going to have spending money, but in addition to that, something in the neighborhood of a couple $100 for emergency fees. Now, from a travel standpoint, It's Your World Travel is who we strongly recommend. It seems like today, again, with particularly, it seems like this year has been, there've been a lot of delays in flights and cancellations and that sort of thing. And that's included the travel overseas. If we're using It's Your World, they take care of any emergency situations and they're right on it and get it taken care of. If they do their travel on their own, and some families prefer doing that, then you've got, they're kind of more on their own to try to resolve the problem. Plus you want to coordinate because, as you said, Dale, students go over, spend time in the country they're exchanging with, and then both students come back. We want to make sure those flights are coordinated so that those students come back together on the same flight, preferably sitting next to each other. So It's Your World can help out that. So I would strongly recommend, particularly as a couple governors and governors to be on the line, knowing that you want to minimize the amount of headaches and calls you get at 2 a.m. saying we got a problem with something. So I think It's Your World takes care of that, and I would strongly encourage you to use that. Insurance, we haven't seen the rates yet for this year, but it tends to run. It's been running in the $4.25 range, $4.25 per day overseas. So you count the day that they fly out to the day they fly back. Take those number of days times approximately, and I would guess this year's rate will not be too much different than it's been. We tend to say under $5. That usually is, well, I'm sure will cover everything. We have included in that not only the medical expense, but the travel interruption expense, so that if anything should happen, there is insurance to cover that as well. Let's see, I had a thought there and I lost it. I'll see if I can come back to that. I've covered most of the benefits already. I guess I would say, do you have any questions at all, any of you, for me?
Ron, could you just clarify the insurance? Because I know it includes medical insurance.
Yeah,
That's good overseas.
Yeah. Thank you, Dale. I'm glad you did that because that's the thought I had that I wanted to come back to.
Okay.
This year we experienced for the first time, normally we buy the insurance here that covers them over there. And we do that because we know what they're getting and we know that we're quite comfortable with it. This year we found a few countries in Europe have started requesting that the insurance must be purchased there. They cannot use US-based insurance. We're still kind of working our way through that because in a couple cases it didn't happen and they didn't say anything about it. They accepted the US insurance. So we're not really sure totally what that means. And we know what our insurance has. We don't know what theirs has. And so we have told people it's probably not a bad idea for the little bit of money. I mean, you're talking probably a little over $100 here to have insurance to buy both the European policy and ours, just to be covered until we learn a little bit more about it. But probably by next year, as we get further into it, we'll have a better idea. I know France and Spain were two of the countries that were requesting it. And I don't know if others are going to start, if this is a new trend or what it is, and a little bit more, we're still a little up in the air on that, what it's going to be.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ron. Any other questions for Ron?
Any others?
All right, Ron, I know you have to go to another meeting, so we appreciate you participating with us at District 6710 this evening.
I appreciate the fact that you're restarting a program that I guess I've hosted several students over the years and been involved. The year I was governor, I think we had 20 long-term students, not short-term, but we had several short-term as well, but had about 20 go out. And so it's one of those programs that I feel very strongly about. And you know, when you travel overseas, you learn a lot about it. And it's something that you can never take away. And I'm when somebody I think commented earlier, Dale, I think it might have been you, that you learn about or no, Tommy, I guess it was you, that said that you learn so much that way. Your family learns, everybody learns a little bit more about the world, and they become better people. And so we have a great program here in Dale. I'm so delighted that you and your district have embarked on trying to do a lot more with it. So thank you very much. If you have any questions in the future, let me know. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Thanks again for participating this
Have a nice
evening.
day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we promised this was going to be a short event, a short program, and we're going to hold to that, but just a couple of final comments regarding logistics that you would want to know. So let's say you know of a student, or you have a student with your club that would be interested in a short-term exchange. The first thing that they need to do to get started is go on to the Rotary Youth Exchange OE multi-district website. You can just simply Google it, and you'll see on there's a section for exchange. Go down and choose short term, and there's an application. And the first thing to do is for the student to begin the application. And then the application will actually guide the student through the other requirements. Now, there are requirements for students, and there's requirements for parents and as host families for safety of the exchange students, but it will guide you through that. Now, there's this pretty sophisticated system called YAY. It's Youth Exchange System that you'll be using, but it's pretty easy, but there are steps that are required that have to be done before you can be accepted to go on a short-term exchange. Now, from a club point of view, it's very nice because there's really no cost to the club because the parents pay the cost, and there is some involvement, but it's low involvement for the club. So if your club has never done an exchange, this would be a great way to break in, get some experience, and participate in youth exchange with a short-term program. And lastly, I just wanted to say is, when do you need to get the application in? Applications are already open. So I encourage you to go ahead, if you know students, have them get in there and get the application. Sometimes it takes a while for the students to get everything filled in. And but the deadline is the end of December. So we'd like to get it in before that so that we can start working through the process. But at the end of December is the deadline for the short-term exchange. Any questions? All right, well, I'd like to thank all of you who joined for participating and taking up some of your time this evening. Tommy, I see you're.
Yeah, I had one thing here. I was on mute, so.
Please go ahead.
I guess the one thing for the short term and the long term, was December 1. You get the application in?
Well, for the short term, it needs to be in as soon as possible, the latest, the end of December. The long term, we definitely need to know if you have a student that's going to be participating in that. There's a lot more involved with the long term. And so we could probably go till the end of December for finalizing everything, but we need to get started in September, because we're going to have to tell OE multi-district how many students we think are going to apply. So we kind of need to know sooner with the inbound and the outbound program. That's a good question, Tom.
And the second thing, going back in time, when 6710 had, when we had our own, I guess, exchange program, we asked the clubs that were housing exchange students to have some type of stipend per month for them. But it wasn't mandatory. Are we going to mandatory say that if you have a student there, you should have some type of an allowance per month for them to meet their needs?
That is a requirement for inbound. And so we'll talk more about that on the inbound session, which will be either next week or the week after.
Okay.
But not for the short term.
And
So-
I think you went over a website. The website that I have right now is just www.oerye.org.
Yes, that should work.
Okay.
I don't even type it in. I just Google Rotary Youth Exchange,
Mhm.
OE multi-district. It pops
Okay.
right up. So,
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I've been looking at as y'all explained everything tonight.
yeah.
So that answers my questions.
All right. Thank you. Any other last minute questions? All right. I see it's 6:30. We promised this to be a 30-minute program. I think we've hit it. If any of you watching this video have questions, please don't hesitate to email me. I'm on the email that went out, or my email is on the email invitation that you received. And but please reach out. I encourage you to speak to your guidance counselors, speak to your club members. And if you do have students that would benefit from this program, encourage you to encourage them to go ahead and start the application process. It will be an experience of a lifetime for them. Thank you for watching this video. And for those of you here this evening, thank you for your time. Have a great night.
Thank you.